Hi everyone, I'm Dom Griffin, I'm a film critic and you're watching the Armchair Auteur. This is an ongoing video series I do where we talk about new movies, old movies, screenplay analysis, television reviews, that sort of thing. So if you like movies and you like movie adjacent popular culture and you like to see somebody pick those things apart, then please consider subscribing. Today I'm reviewing the new Matt Damon film Stillwater from writer-director Tom McCarthy. You may know it as the movie that looks kind of like Taken but with Matt Damon, or you may also know it as the movie where Matt Damon plays a Trump supporter. You may have some preconceived notions about the movie based on those two things, but the movie, I will say right up front, is a little bit different than what you're expecting. In the film, Matt Damon plays Bill Baker, an oil worker from Stillwater, Oklahoma, whose daughter Allison, played by Abigail Breslin, has spent the last few years in a French prison for murdering her Arab girlfriend while studying abroad. Allison insists she didn't do it and that the real killer is out there somewhere, so Bill, her otherwise useless father, tries to rise to the occasion and to get to the bottom of things to free his daughter. Okay, now that I've said it, it does sound a lot like a Liam Neeson movie, but Stillwater really isn't like that. Well, it isn't only like that. It's also a pretty touching domestic drama about a man building a new family years after fouling up his first attempt at fatherhood, only for his sins and transgressions to fail this new try for happiness too, which is way more up my alley. But Stillwater's big problem is that it's kind of sprawling, curiously paced, and ends on such a thudding, plodding, obvious note that most of the critics in my screening burst out laughing when the director credit came up on the screen. That director, Tom McCarthy, used to be a character actor until he transitioned to filmmaking with solid indie-based hits like The Station Agent, The Visitor, and later, Best Picture winner Spotlight. He also made the Paul Giamatti flick Win-Win, a film that is part of the Ends with a Needle Drop from the National Cinematic Universe alongside Warrior, another movie shot by Stillwater cinematographer Masanobu Takanagi. I make that connection to point out that at his best, McCarthy generally makes movies that are understated and patient, in a way that isn't that far removed from the work of Warrior helmer Gavin O'Connor, whose The Way Back easily could have been a Tom McCarthy character study if he had a little bit more dude's rock energy in him.
I thought I said to force them left.
Coach, I'm trying.
Try harder.
I worked in art house theater for nearly a decade, and we regularly would program these like very small European films in one of our smallest auditoriums, and week in, week out, these movies, regardless of actual quality, would tend to do about the same amount of business. They were often a little bit slower, a little bit more weird in their actual pacing, a little bit more shifting in their tones and themes and ideas, and generally speaking, the people watching these movies didn't really care if they were good or not, as long as they got like 2.5 stars or above from Ann Horday and the Washington Post. These movies would do all right on the weekend. Sometimes these movies would be really fucking incredible, but most of the time they were just like whatever. But they did really well with the normies who came to art house theaters just to be higher and mightier than the people who went to go see robots kickboxing down the street. Stillwater, though it stars a big name like Matt Damon and is principally concerned with exploring the American condition, feels quite a bit like one of those movies. Not just because it takes place primarily in Marseille, but because its ever-shifting, meandering tone feels like a character study masquerading as a noir thriller. If this movie followed around a Frenchman instead of a red state blue-collar guy, it might be easier for people to wrap their respective heads around it, which makes a lot of sense because we definitely played every single Tom McCarthy movie at that theater the entire time I worked there. Stillwater works best when it follows Bill away from his quest to free his daughter, when it settles into his friendship with French actress Virginie, played by Caitlin Cotin, and her daughter Maya, played by Lilou Savad, both of whom really steal the movie. And when the procedural mystery elements do work, they work because of their thematic proximity to movies like Denis Villeneuve's Prisoners, which elements of the film resemble, albeit less arch and stylized. But the real conversation around this movie is, why is Matt Damon in it? Within the first 10 or 15 minutes of Stillwater, you will ask yourself two primary questions. Question 1, does Matt Damon know he is walking around in what is essentially Newsmax viewer cosplay? And question 2, why didn't they just cast Josh Brolin? Rarely are these two up for the same kind of role, but for, I would say, roughly 40 to 45% of this movie, Brolin would have been the better choice to play Bill, particularly if the movie was primarily concerned with the more genre elements of the story. But the majority of the film, its most affecting parts, lie in the family drama of Bill living with Virginia and Maya, and for those parts, we need Matt Damon's charisma and vulnerability. In today's political climate, the film somewhat bluntly wants you to see past its protagonist's loosely alluded to political beliefs, and actually be compelled by the journey he is on. And I'm not so sure that would have worked with someone like Josh Brolin in the role. And all the apprehension you may initially feel about Bill at the beginning of the film film kind of gently washes away as you get to know him better as a character. And a lot of that is because of the inherent comfort Matt Damon makes us feel on screen because we've known him for so long, for better or for worse. I mean, I think it's a pretty good Matt Damon performance. I think it's definitely one of his stronger, more affecting performances. And it's nice to see him in a movie for a change where he is the star of the movie and he's on the poster and he doesn't just show up randomly without any kind of warning.
Surprise, shawty!
Advocate selling your car and using a ride service?
Happy anniversary.
To me, the movie has two scenes that stick out really well as being worth some of the political themes the movie is trying to explore. The first is one that is referenced in almost every review of the movie, which is the scene where one of Virginia's friends finally asks Bill the question of whether or not he voted for Trump, and he answers, no, he did not. But that's because he can't vote because he's a registered felon. That scene plays out very well in the movie and kind of gives you like an idea of like the kind of ambiguity it's going for, and I really kind of dug that. There's another scene where Bill is trying to interrogate someone that he thinks may have witnessed the alleged actual killer that his daughter is in jail for the murder of. Bad sentence. And when him and Virginia, who's working as his translator, trying to interrogate this guy, it's very clear that this guy is super fucking racist and that this guy sees Bill as like kin because like they both hate brown people just on different sides of the pond. And the guy is basically telling her like he'll finger any random Arab kid for this murder because he thinks they're all dirt.
Well, he might know something.
No, he doesn't know something. Bill, we're not going to send an innocent boy to jail.
My daughter is innocent.
What? Oh, I can't believe this conversation.
Well, then, you live in some fancy-ass world, honey, because I work with guys like that all the time.
No, but it doesn't matter, okay? It's not right.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm trying to get my little girl out of jail. That's all I give a fuck about.
It's very telling and clear that in this movie, much of what happens is to try to get Bill's character to sort of see a world beyond the one that is his own and to get him to kind of understand that there are bigger things at play than just some of the things that have been fed to him by the media. And that stuff is done really unsubtly and very bluntly and very awkwardly. And by the film's final scene, like you will burst into laughter at how unsubtle it is. Bluntness is not the worst thing in the world. Like I gave very high marks to M. Night Shyamalan's Old recently, so you know I don't really care about a lack of subtlety. But in this movie, those moments that lack subtlety feel really at conflict with the best stuff in the movie, which is all of the really patient and quiet, interesting moments with Bill learning to be a father in a way that he essentially never did when he was originally a father. Like he really takes to his relationship with Virginia and his relationship with Maya, and it's because he's lived long enough and he's seen enough things now to where he's now, in this point in his life, kind of ready to be in this role that he just wasn't in his younger days when he still drank, when he still fucked up, when he was still like a piece of shit. And ultimately, so much of what prevents him from being able to have this second chance at happiness and domestic bliss comes from having to wrestle with and grapple with the after effects of the mistakes he made in his youth. I don't want to get into too many specifics or plot spoiler type stuff because the movie does run very long and does have a lot of things happening in it. So I don't want to like, you know, have to explain every little fucking detail in the plot. But suffice to say, other than the very, very dumb last scene, and other than some of like the length, the movie is longer than it needs to be. It's like roughly 20-25 minutes longer than it should be. I know I say that all the time, but this movie does feel long as balls. But wrapped up in the middle of all those other ancillary moments that probably could have been cut, there is some real meat here. I think that Damon's performance is really strong, and I think it's worth watching. I don't know if it's worth going out to a theater to see. I know I have to keep kind of pointing out the distinction between going to see a new movie and watching one on VOD or a streamer if you can, but I think this movie is going to be available in theaters and on VOD, and as a VOD release, I think it's pretty solid. I think it's something you guys might want to check out. It's pretty cool. Damon's good. His facial hair is funny. For the most part, the movie is pretty stirring. Like I had a lot of little emotional beats that really got to me, even though by the end I was kind of like, kind of a dumb ending. Bad endings are bad. They really ruin good movies. But I think this one is solid, I will say. I think this movie is pretty okay. I think it's worth seeing. So those are my thoughts about Matt Damon in Stillwater. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns, that's what the comment section's for. You can go there and type things and I'll talk to you. If you have not subscribed, this would be a very good time to subscribe. You can hit the little bell icon and you'll get notifications anytime I put out new videos. You will be one of the first people to see whatever my thoughts are on whatever I watch this week. So thank you again for watching. Hope you're all doing well, staying safe, being good to yourselves and each other. I will see you in the next video very soon.